The Black Mass and human sacrifice. Human sacrifice is a subject that few, if any, ex-cult members are willing to talk about because of the legal implications. I am doing so only at the Lord's command. It is a fact and a practice of the Brotherhood. I have spent most of my life in hospitals and operating rooms because of my persistent refusal to bow to Satan in this area. I flatly refuse to participate in human sacrifice. Because of my extremely rapid rise in power, I quickly attained a position in which I could determine what I would and would not do. That is, as far as other humans were concerned. I was more powerful than the other Satanists, so they could not touch me. Satan and his demons could, however. I have been brutally disciplined and tortured by demons on many occasions because of my refusal to obey Satan in this area. I have had cancer 4 times with many surgeries and all the horrors of chemotherapy. The cancer was directly given to me by Satan as punishment for my refusal to participate in human sacrifice. I have no doubt that I would probably have been killed shortly if the Lord had not had mercy on me and saved me out of Satan's captivity when he did. Subscribe to this channel to continue getting real-life stories like this one. The customs and ceremonies involved in human and animal sacrifice differ somewhat in different areas. Also, in and of course, by much individual recruitment. These independent groups are usually heavily involved in drugs, are very open, careless and blatant in what they do, and are not directly involved with the Brotherhood. Many of them do not even know the group exists. These are the groups careless enough to get caught in their various crimes of ritualistic child abuse, human sacrifice, etc. At the time I left Satanism, there was a growing concern among the leaders of the Brotherhood about the carelessness of these people. However, Satan is rapidly becoming so bold that he really doesn't care, and he certainly doesn't care how many of these people end up in jail for the crimes they commit. Satan knows he doesn't have many years left, and he is rapidly moving to perpetuate as much destruction upon this earth as possible. In the United States, there are 8 holy days out of each year when human sacrifice is usually performed. Human sacrifices may also be performed on other days for other reasons, such as discipline, fertility rites, etc. Smaller covens who do not have the necessary facilities usually join with the larger covens nearby on these occasions. The holy days are Christmas, Easter, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and as close as possible to the first day of spring, summer, fall, and winter. Satan wishes to desecrate each of God's mercifully ordained seasons. Halloween has, since its inception by the Druids in England, been a special holiday for human sacrifices to Satan. It continues the same in our day. The sudden epidemic of harmful substances and objects being placed in the various Halloween treats for trick-or-treaters is no accident. It was a carefully planned effort by Satanists. The children injured and killed by these treats are sacrifices to Satan. The purpose of the sacrifices, as taught to cult members, is to purify them so that they can receive Satan's blessings. Also, anyone who drinks the victim's blood or eats their flesh gains new demons and therefore greatly increased power. The drinking of blood is an important part of all satanic activities. This is no accident. Satan constantly strives to defile all of God's principles, and whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, that eateth any manner of blood, I, God is speaking, will even set my face against that soul that eateth blood, and will cut him off from among his people. For the life of the flesh is in the blood. Leviticus 17 verses 10 to 11. Human sacrifices, as with all cult meetings, are never held the same place twice. Most members do not find out the location of the meeting until a few hours prior to its start. Sacrifices are always held in the most hidden and isolated areas possible. In large cities, this sometimes becomes a problem, but there are usually enough vacant or abandoned warehouses and buildings available. Rarely does the Brotherhood hold a human sacrifice outside, except when very secluded and isolated country or swampy areas are available. This is not true with the younger, bolder people tripped out on drugs. They are not overly concerned with security, and because of this, the Brotherhood sees to it that many of them are discovered by the police and arrested, or are simply exterminated to prevent trouble. They are always declared to be insane. The Brotherhood sees to this so that a serious connection with Satanism is not made. Specific committees are appointed and maintained within the Brotherhood to set up the necessary equipment and to provide cleanup afterwards. Satanists, who are also policemen, are almost always on these committees. Their function is to prevent any interference from law enforcement agencies. The equipment, such as the altar, in large cities, Satan's golden throne, etc., is transported in plain vans. It can be quickly set up and taken down. The bodies are almost always disposed of by cremation. Babies are rather easily ground up, even in a garbage disposal, and are often disposed of in this manner. Occasionally, the body is cremated at the site of the sacrifice. When this is not practicable, there usually is no difficulty in using the facilities of a nearby mortuary. Also, crematory facilities at veterinary hospitals or animal shelters are frequently used. The highly disciplined and carefully planned work of both the setup and cleanup committees has been responsible for keeping the practice of human sacrifice out of the public eye for many, many years. Security at such ceremonies is always tight, and police radio frequencies are continuously monitored throughout the ceremony. Anyone who has witnessed such a ceremony of human sacrifice and then tries to pull out of the cult does so at the cost of his or her own life. The only way to get out is through the power of Jesus Christ, and even then, it is not easy. The demons closely monitor everyone who has ever been even slightly involved with such a practice. I will describe here a Black Sabbath, also called the Black Mass, that I was forced to attend. I was, at the time, a minor, not yet a high priestess, and was literally a captive. Black Sabbaths take place once per year, always at the time of the full moon and on the Easter weekend. Most of the competitions that I attended in California were just before Easter and culminated in the Easter Black Sabbath. Regardless of the cost, I always managed to get away just before the ceremony. Satan saw to it that I paid dearly for that rebellion, but I didn't care. I was very young at the time of that horrible weekend, still a child actually, but the memories of it torment me still and always will. I had been a member of the cult for less than a year. I was informed by the high priestess that a very important ceremony was coming up, that I was privileged to be invited, but she also made it very clear at the same time that I had no choice, I would attend. Only those who are invited attend, and those invited have no choice but to attend. Few are willing to incur Satan's wrath by not attending, because they are afraid that if they did so, they would be likely to end up the sacrificee at the next Black Mass. I was not permitted to go alone, but was taken by my master, the high priestess, and several other witches. The meeting was held in a very large, isolated barn, which had been roughly remodeled for the purpose. I suppose that there were a couple thousand people there from the whole surrounding area. Most had already been taking drugs prior to coming, and all were given potions to drink containing drugs and alcohol at the beginning of the meeting. I always avoided taking any of these drugged drinks, because I knew the danger of clouding my mind. There were too many who coveted my position of being trained to be a high priestess. The higher members of the cult never partook of these drugged drinks and despised those who did so. I didn't know what was going to happen as I entered the barn with my companions that night. It was a Friday night, Good Friday. The meeting was to run through that Sunday. I saw that the barn had a platform across one end. Above the platform sat a throne made of pure gold. That throne was for Satan. This was obviously an important occasion if Satan was to put in a personal appearance. I was to learn later that split-second timing of such sacrifices is required by Satan and absolute coordination between covens across the country, because Satan can only be in one place at a time. The timing must be accurate so that he could attend every meeting. He is not omnipresent like God. As the high priest and high priestess came out onto the platform, an absolute silence fell over the crowd. A silence so intense that you could hear a pin drop. The silence was one of fear. Each one was afraid that he or she might be chosen to be the sacrifice. At that moment, Satan was no longer a glory to anyone, no longer an honor. A ripple of relief went through the crowd when the victim was dragged kicking and screaming through a side door and up onto the stage. The main Easter sacrifice is always a man. Occasionally, additional sacrifices of women, children, or animals are made, but the ceremony centers around the sacrifice of a man. Often, a hitchhiker is picked up some days before the ceremony and carefully guarded until the time of the meeting. In the eyes of Satan and the crowd, that man becomes Jesus, and Satan's supposed victory over Jesus at the cross is celebrated. I watched in utter horror as a crown of huge long thorns was driven into the young man's head, the thorns going in so deep as to pierce into his skull. Then he was stripped and beaten with whips tipped with metal studs and tortured with spikes and red-hot pokers. Finally, he was nailed to a wooden cross, which was then picked up and placed in a hole in the ground just in front of the middle of the platform. I will never forget the stench of the burned and tormented flesh, the screams of the victim, his writhing agony, his pleas for mercy. The crowd roared like a pack of wild animals, the inhuman voices of many demons from within the crowd joining in. They jeered and cheered as the cross was raised into place and dropped down into the hole. Satan had appeared by that time and sat on his throne nodding in approval. The high priest urinated on the victim, and members of the congregation threw feces at him while everybody cheered Satan's supposed victory and then bowed down and worshipped Satan. Satan appeared in human form as usual, dressed completely in shining white. But his eyes glowed red as a flame, and he threw his head back and gave a howl and a scream and a hideous laugh of victory as the high priest drove a long spike through the man's head, pinning it to the cross, killing him. The crowd went crazy, screaming and shouting and dancing in crazed ecstasy at the victory. They loudly proclaimed all victory and power and honor to their father Satan. Satan vanished shortly after that to go on to the next Black Sabbath sacrifice. At his departure, the meeting turned into a sex orgy. Human with human and demon with human. Every type of sexual perversion imaginable was practiced. The victim's blood was drained off and mixed with drugs and alcohol and drank by the high priest and high priestess and passed through the crowd. Many of the crowd went up to desecrate the body. The night hours passed by while the drugged, demonic, drunken frenzy of the crowd continued. Eventually, the body was severed from the head and ground up, and portions mixed with drugs and other substances. Those who wanted more power ate some of the mixture. The third day, as people began to come down from their drugged state, they left for home in twos and threes, all proclaiming that their great and glorious father Satan had won yet another victory over the enemy Jesus Christ. What a mockery the Black Sabbaths are. Satan knows that they are a mockery. The ceremony itself is supposed to be symbolic of the death of Christ. Satan proclaims that Jesus Christ was the ultimate sacrifice to him, that he won over Christ by killing him on the cross. Satan is lying. He knows that he was defeated at the cross, not Jesus, and so do all of the demons, but the people don't. I am one of the fortunate ones. I found out that it is all a lie. It is all an indescribably horrible lie. I declare to you, the reader, you who are yet Satanists, you who have not yet made Jesus your Lord and Master, Satan was not victorious at the cross. God's word sums it up the best. And having spoiled principalities and powers, he made a shoe of them openly, triumphing over them in it. Colossians 2:15. Jesus is alive. Satan has no right to any of us. We can be free from bondage to Satan. All we need do is ask Jesus to set us free. He already paid the price. Won't you ask Jesus today? Tomorrow may be too late. Turning points. Elaine talks. The first real turning point in my life came about a year after I became the regional bride of Satan. My dream world of believing that I was actually loved by someone, Satan himself, was cruelly shattered. Apparently, I had committed some minor offense against Satan, so minor in fact that I had not even realized that I had done anything. I was home alone one day when suddenly 4 huge demons appeared in a physical manifestation. They were all 4 identical. They were dark, about 7 feet tall, and covered with black scales similar to Richan. They had vicious faces, long fangs, and even longer fingernails that were like razor-sharp steel. Without any warning, they came and attacked me. They clawed me with their long nails, shredding my flesh. They beat me and tossed me back and forth from one to another like a rubber ball. I screamed and cried and begged them to stop hurting me, begged them to tell me why they were doing this, but they never answered a word. They just snarled and laughed hideous laughs. Manchan and Richan, my guardians, simply stood by and made no move either to help me or to make any explanation as to why they were doing this to me. After about a half an hour, they left as suddenly as they had come. I was left lying on the floor, exhausted and in agony. My back was torn in shreds. I had huge bruises from head to toe. The furniture was all tossed about and my blood was everywhere. As I lay there, sobbing and panting and trying to recover a bit, Satan walked through the closed door. As usual, he was in his favorite guise of an extremely handsome young man. He stood looking down at me and then threw back his head and laughed. He continued to laugh as I lay there sobbing, asking him why the demons had so cruelly tormented me. He never gave me any answer except to tell me that I was being disciplined. He went on to add that he thought that the demons had done a rather good job of it. Then, without making any move to help me, he disappeared. I didn't have any answers except one: Satan hated me and was a liar. That knowledge was a wound deeper to my heart than any wound on my body. I was left to clean up myself and the apartment as best I could. By that time, I was a nurse, and I had to use every bit of my nursing skill and knowledge just to survive. I could not go to anyone for help, as I could not explain what had happened to me. No one cared enough about me to come and find out what was wrong with me or to help me. When finally my wounds healed, there was no scarring. Satan saw to that. He left no evidence that I could possibly use against him in the future. It was then that I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that Satan hated and despised me and did not love me as he said he did. I also realized that the demons too were using me for their own ends. It was Manchan and the other demons that had told on me for whatever small thing I had done. Many times I had covered for them about something they had done in order to protect them from Satan's wrath. They had betrayed me. It was then that I decided to get out of the cult if possible, although it was a couple of years before God showed me the way. I felt overwhelmingly trapped. Demons were all around me and within me. At that time, I also thought that they could read my mind. I dared hardly think about wanting out, and certainly could never speak about it or the demons would know. I did not know where to turn for help. Where in the world could I ever find the power to overcome Satan and his demons, supposing one even survived long enough to try? I had to pretend continually that I was still willing to be within the cult. I knew that ultimately Satan and the demons planned my destruction. If Manchan or any of the other demons found out what I was thinking, it would have meant death, and an agonizing death at that. 2 years after that episode of discipline, a lady I worked with started inviting me to go with her to her church. I continuously refused. I had troubles enough without going with that fanatic. Then Satan came to me again as the handsome young man. He put his arms around me, acted very loving, and told me that he, my husband, had been terribly insulted and that only I could get revenge for him. He knew of Esther's, the lady at work, invitations to go with her to her church. He wanted me to go and destroy that church because the people there were daring to proclaim that he, Satan, not only was alive and well, but that he was evil and should and could be fought against. I was to go and join the church and then split it and destroy it. He wanted me to use the 8-part plan that his servants, including myself, had used and are using so successfully all over the world to destroy Christian churches. These 8 points will be discussed in detail in chapter 17. I tried twice to go. The first time I couldn't even get out of the car because the power of God was there so strongly. I had never experienced such a thing before. The second time I made it to the door, but literally could not take hold of the doorknob. Again, the power and presence of the Lord was too strong. The demons within me felt it as well and flatly refused to go in. I don't know if I would ever have gone in if Esther hadn't approached me again at work. She dared me to go. Esther knew me well enough by then to know that I would never turn down a dare, so finally I went, slipping in on the back row. Esther was watching for me, and when she saw me come in, she motioned for me to go up to the front and join her, but I refused. So she came back and sat with me, telling me that it's okay, God is here on the back row just as much as on the front row. I did not appreciate that at all. It so happened that the young man preaching there that night was applying for the position of pastor. It was all I and the demons could do to sit through his sermon, and I was a hardened churchgoer. Then, to make matters worse, immediately after church he made a beeline to the back row where Esther and I sat and talked to me and tried to get me to give my life to Jesus. I told him in no uncertain terms that I did not want or need Jesus. He just smiled then and said, "Well, I'm sure that you won't mind if I pray for you." Remembering in the nick of time that I was supposed to join the church, I managed to stifle my initial response and muttered, "No, I don't mind." Then, much to my horror, he put his hand on my shoulder and proceeded to pray for me, right there, out loud. I couldn't stand to be touched by anyone, especially him, neither could the demons. I squirmed, but that didn't seem to register with him. He just went on praying. I scrambled out of the church as quickly as I could after he finished. But something had touched me. On the way home, I told the Lord that if he did exist and wanted me to be his, that he must let that young man become the pastor of that church. The following Sunday, the church voted to make him the pastor. It was almost a year before I kept my side of the bargain. During that year, another incident happened that also was very key in making me realize that Satan was lying, that there is a power greater than his, and that Jesus must be the answer. Shortly after I had started going to the little church, Satan came to me, obviously very angry. He told me that there was a young smart aleck doctor at his special hospital in a nearby city. This doctor was not only greatly interfering by preaching and praying everywhere, but had also actually dared to interfere with a number of his top witches and their work at that institution. Satan ordered me to organize a nationwide effort among all the top witches for that doctor's destruction. He didn't care how we did it, but that doctor must be killed, and quickly. I did not know until almost 2 years later that Rebecca was the doctor who was on the receiving end of that massive effort to destroy her by witchcraft. I shudder to think what might have happened if we had succeeded. Praise God that we did not. Dutifully, I picked up the phone and called Helen, who was by that time the head witch at that particular hospital. I told her of Satan's order and delegated her to organize the rest. I thought little about the matter again for several months, except to do the necessary incantations periodically. Then, suddenly, after about 6 months, I began to realize that every time I did an incantation in the direction of that doctor, the demons came back to me, unable to get through. They were not pleased. This was a complication that I didn't need just then. I was puzzled, as I had never experienced such a thing before. I did not talk to anyone else about the problem, because to admit that my power was failing would have been fatal for me. Then about 3 weeks before I turned to Jesus, one received a phone call from Helen. That doctor who had left the hospital dying 4 months earlier had just that day returned to work. Not only had she returned, but she was completely healed. I was shocked. How could that be? I realized then that a power much greater than anything I had ever seen had blocked us, and again I remembered the link angels in California. But this doctor must possess the same power that that family had. I realized that that power was Jesus Christ. Later that day, Satan showed up again, most unhappy, to ask me why we had failed. "Don't you know?" I asked. "Yes," he replied, "but I want to know if you know." "Well, I assume somebody must have blocked us by prayer." "That is right," was his curt answer. Then he vanished. During that period of time, I had gone to the little church regularly. It wasn't long before I realized that I was powerless to destroy it. Those people were onto every trick I tried, but they just kept on loving me and praying for me. I fell in love with them. Those people were genuine. They loved the Lord so much that they didn't care who I was, where I came from, how I dressed or talked. All they cared about was my soul. They cared enough to keep on praying and praying. They prayed me right up to the altar one Sunday night, where I finally said, "Jesus, I want and need you. Please forgive me and come into my heart and life." What a struggle that was. Manchan and the other demons tried to hold my mouth shut. They kept screaming in my mind that I had been lied to, God didn't exist, and Jesus was really dead. But I knew that they were liars and would not listen to them. At that time, Manchan and the other demons had a lot to say and do. The first thing that they did was fly right off and tell Satan what I had done. Then the fur started to fly. That night, after I had returned home, Satan came to talk to me, but things were strangely different. Usually Satan would come up to me and put his hands on my shoulders or hold me in his arms. This time, he stood back away from me. I could see that he had many very powerful demons with him, but they, too, stood back away from me. Satan was steaming mad. He shouted at me, "What in the hell do you think you are doing?" "I'm leaving you," I replied. "You can't do that." "The hell I can't. I just did. You're my bride. I won you. If you don't do as I say, I'll kill you. You can't get out of that contract. I'd a lot rather die for God than I would stay your bride. That contract is no longer valid because it is covered by Jesus' blood. You have nothing to offer me but lies and destruction. You've made the wrong decision. I'll prove that to you shortly. You, Ad, get out of my house. See, you're not really a Christian." "What do you mean?" "Christians don't swear." I had not thought about that, but then I had only been a Christian for a couple of hours and was used to using any language I pleased when away from the church. "So what? I know I am, because I know that I asked Jesus to forgive my sins and to come into my heart, and I know that he has." "You just think that. It didn't really happen." I was by then so angry that I tried to take a step towards Satan to punch him in his nose, but for some reason I couldn't get my feet to move. By that time Satan was so angry he was screaming threats at me. I suddenly had a warm feeling of peace sweep over me, and I unmistakably heard the Lord speak to my heart and spirit for the first time. He said, "Do not be afraid, my child. I am here. He cannot harm you." Again I told Satan to leave, but this time I used the name of Jesus, and in an instant he disappeared. I suppose Satan came to me nearly 20 times over the next 2 weeks. Sometimes in a very charming mood, attempting to be a lover, but usually in a rage. He tried to persuade me to change my mind. He told me that Jesus was dead. He threatened many things, but not once did he come near to me. He always stood at a distance, and so did the demons. Many times, many demons came, obviously planning to torture me as the 4 had done in the past, but always they stopped short of me and looked confused and horrified, and then turned and left without saying a thing. Gradually, I realized that I must have some kind of special protection from the Lord. Even Manchan, though he badgered me all the time, did not seem able to tear me as he had done in the past, and now I had more control over him than he had over me. Despite the special protection I had, Manchan did succeed in making me very, very ill, and within 2 weeks, I ended up in a hospital in another city away from my hometown. I did not at the time realize that the Lord had permitted this. The long road to my complete freedom from the demons and arrival at a full and complete commitment to Jesus as Lord and Master, as well as Savior, was to start in that place. So I ended up a patient in a strange hospital, in a strange city. I lost almost everything I had gained through Satanism within 2 weeks of accepting Jesus. But praise the Lord, He was in control of all of that, and I began my new life with Jesus, and at last met the very person I had tried so hard to kill, Rebecca.